what we do is, so mainly one thing is try to gather people who are interested in electronic music and instruments.
Good.
Both of them. It's
Yes.
very important to emphasize, because you cannot really separate the technology from the music itself.
Well said.
So
well said.
some of us are music producers, others are really like collectors, and some others are technicians. So we have from time to time some gatherings, some workshops, and we usually have these so-called big events. The next one will be in next February. So it will be an exhibition.
Okay.
And during the daytime, and in the evenings we will have some concerts and also some workshops. So we had a big event last time, and Jean-Michel Jarre, he was kind enough to host it, I would say, not physically, but he sent us a message, as hopefully you will do as well. So, and this is a great opportunity for us to have this very short interview with you and chat about a couple of things, mostly, I would say, some your personal opinion about the technology, music, your career, and of course we would share this discussion with our members and with the whole community. And if you will be kind enough to virtually open this exhibition, that would be wonderful. So this is the purpose of this short interview. So, well, I would like to start with a very, I would say, a generic question. So, in the last 50 to 60 years, the electronic music technology and the instruments changed a lot. So my question is, what do you think, what kind of impact did it have on the musicians, on the artists? Do you, for example, see an electronic musician or a sound designer differently right now than 20 years or 50 years? Does it mean to be different to be a sound designer, in the 70s, 80s, or right now?
I don't think that it's changed a lot in the 50 years. I think we've recognized the consistencies over time. We've distilled an understanding that these instruments are have basic components, oscillators, filters, envelope generators, sequencers, and so forth, but those can be very varied. So we also know that it's an instrument that has no specific design. It's moving because technology is alive. Some of the concepts that I care about, that I got from Buchla, I'm still looking to see implemented. One is the spatial control of sound, the movement of sound, because electronic sound is basically monophonic. It doesn't exist in its acoustic space. It comes from an electronic delivery. And so it's the only type of sound that can generate spatial movement while it's being created. So this is important because it's integrated with the rhythm of the music. You can move it rhythmically. That's really special, and I,
Do you see it solved any soon, like this? I mean, so technically I think it's not a very big issue to have multiple speakers, so to say multiple channels, but as a musician, how would you approach that problem? I mean, I guess you would need some very nice controllers for that to place the sound somewhere in the sound field, or I don't know.
Yeah, the basic concept of electronic music is voltage control.
Yes.
So that's so simple. We know that in order to move the sound, we need voltages, and we need to have the module that allows us to put in a control voltage and move the sound. And it's very different from currently we have a fascination with spatial sound, multi-speakers. But it's not so much about movement, it's about placement.
Right.
And yeah, and electronic music, or the type of music that we're talking about, which is modular, can move rhythmically. It's not about placement so much. It's not about putting a sound here.
Yes.
It's about keeping the sound alive. It's one more parameter. The same way, you know, we all think in parameters. What are the parameters? What's the volume? What's the pitch? What's the timbre? What's the placement? And not only is it location, but it is distance.
Okay, I see.
So in the early days, we had voltage-controlled reverb. Don Buchla made a spring reverb, and you could move the sound close and far away on a beat. You know, dum 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 dum, and you could make a virtual, imaginary space. So we still need that too.
So what do you think? I'm asking you your personal experience, personal opinion. What is more important in making such a music, a technical knowledge of the instrument or the artistic? Because I'm asking because you know, everybody knows that you have been working with Buchla, you know, lots of details about how the instruments work. But what do you think, are these both components equally important, or could somebody with a little bit less technical knowledge make equally, you know, nice or artistic music? If you know what I mean. So
I do know what you mean, and I don't think it's technical. I think that it's a collaborative medium. You have the engineer, and you have the, you know, and what Buchla taught me was that there's the inside of the machine and the outside. My domain is the outside. His domain is the inside.
Yes.
But you need to work together and have a conversation so that you get what you need on the outside and it's implemented on the inside. So that's a concept that's very useful. I'm so tired.
Okay, it's no problem. We can even have a break if you wish. But
okay.
no,
if I could just remember the question long enough
no, it
to
was
answer
great.
it.
It was great.
Yeah. What was the question?
I mean, so this was really a question. So if you know a lot enough about the technical workings, how the instrument works, is it necessary to make great music? So, and what is the proportion of the artistic value and the technical knowledge?
Okay, so you know, my idea is that it's a relationship, right? You get to know the machine the same way you get to know a person. So you have a relationship with the person, and you know, sometimes you never understand the operating system of that other person.
It's right. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But you know,
but you learn how to interact with the person.
How to interact and how to take feedback. You know, how to listen and how to talk, and how to get in relationship. And it takes time, and it's fun. You know, those machines. This is not a new idea. I mean, we do anthropomorphize the machines because, you know, they're alive. They talk. They have blinking lights. They're warm.
They have spirit.
They have spirit. They do things. So it's really a wonderful thing, because when you get, why it's so much fun is that I play the piano. I know if I play a key, I'll get a sound. But when I play the Buchla, it gives back to me on many dimensions. So I give it a specification, maybe this amount of randomness for timbre, this amount of randomness for location, this amount. And it does what I can't do. It can play much faster than I can play. And do more things than I could do if I were just getting one, you know, response for every. So the world of instruments up until now has been that. You know, it's been, I do one thing and I get one thing, and it's very deep. I mean, they're all infinite, right? Okay. Infinite is every place. Yeah.
Very nice. So we are talking about Buchla. You are mentioning, but always mentioning Buchla instruments. But so can I ask something? And I'm sure that everybody, many people ask this already. And there is this concept, so-called West Coast, East Coast synthesis. Do you believe in that concept? And what do you think is special about the Buchla type of synthesis, control, and the instrument in general? Is it, so what is your...
Yeah, I mean, when this started, the East Coast, West Coast, and East Coast was Bob Moog, and West Coast was Don Buchla. And we didn't have a lot of communication in those days, ideas. Yeah. But Moog put a keyboard on the instrument, and it was adopted by pop music and became very popular. And that's great. And Don Buchla never catered to an audience because he was really an inventor who, he wanted to be successful, but he didn't care about other people's ideas because he had his own. So he developed, I think, a concept of a live performance, voltage-controlled instrument. And that's when I met him. Okay. And I adopted that vision, that this was, I mean, I also, in my career, have used a lot of instruments. The CS80, the Prophet 5, the TX6. But I developed an approach through Buchla, which was non-keyboard, voltage-controlled control of the sound. It's a compositional tool.
So it's not really better or worse, it's just different, if I understand correctly.
It's compositional also. So you don't go to it with a line of music that you're going to make. You're actually in the moment manipulating control voltages, which can be a little bit wild,
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a next question, a completely different topic. So I'm not sure if I'm right if I say that you take inspiration from nature in a lot of your music, especially from the CD album Seven Waves. And I'm not sure if it's true. Please confirm that. And if yes, could you elaborate in what form, or do you still get inspiration from nature today?
Yes, I mean, it's no secret that the ocean is a very big inspiration for me. The sound of the ocean, the rhythm of the ocean, the infinity of the ocean. There's so many spiritual dimensions of that huge palette of space. So even today when I start a concert, it comes out of the ocean. Okay. The Buchla is really good at making ocean sounds. And it's funny because it's a simple thing you need. You need a bandpass filter that can, take a control voltage and plunge it and bring it up the way a wave.
Yeah.
And that's, a lot of current synths don't do that. Even the 200E, the filter, the new filter on the 200E, didn't go down. I had to have a clone made of the 200 filter. What's it, the 291. So, it's the tools that help you to express the things you want to express, but you need them. And for me, nature, the other thing, inspiration I get from nature is randomness. Okay. Nature, if all the trees had the same leaves, we would not be happy. But there's some relative, amount of randomness that makes it alive. So I'm into, controlled randomness, the same way nature is.
So you mentioned this ocean wave simulation. So do you strive for, replicating as authentic as possible, or, just to make a sound which sounds good?
Yeah. Well, sometimes people would actually always think that I had recorded the sounds.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of ideas about sampling. People think that you sample. Mm-hmm. And so they just assumed that those were samples of the ocean. And I would say, what? Yeah. I'm not sampling the ocean. I don't sample anything. No, for me it doesn't have to, I don't try to be exact. Okay. I just go in the spirit of the ocean. I used to be able, in 7 waves, all those pieces are connected by wave sounds, and each wave sound is specially designed to go with the energy of that piece.
So it's different, okay.
Yeah.
I need to get to listen again.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I must ask you something. It's a completely different topic. So in your career, you not only have been working as a musician, but also as a sound designer. Everybody knows the story about the Coke advertisement, right. And there is one particular job, the pinball industry, and the xenon thing. That I have to say that we have that pinball machine in. So there is a museum, a pinball museum in Budapest, and we have that machine.
Oh,
it's just
great.
It's fun for you. If you don't have anything better to do, you could visit it. So, but actually, my question is the following. So, how is this kind of work different than being a musician? So, did it, require from you the same amount of commitment, or do you think this kind of sound design is just a job? So could you compare your approach, your personal approach to this? I think it's a completely 2 different kinds of activities, like making music as an artist or making some very practical thing as a subcontractor or something like that.
Well, I worked as an artist when I was doing sound design. Okay. In other words, I was completely independent and could do whatever I wanted, because nobody understood what I was doing anyway. So, but I come from a classical background, and I was aware of the amount of, involvement you can give to a classical training, as a pianist playing 6 hours a day, etc. When I transitioned into technology, for who knows why, what reason, it's very demanding. The technology, also because it's always changing, it's a constant, involvement in learning, interacting with the changing instrumentation. So I often thought to myself, when I was sitting in my studio with all my gear, if anybody knew how much time it takes to just deal with this technology, I'll never be a concert pianist. I mean, that's a life, and this is a life. It is a life. And I think that, going into sound design was natural, because when you deal in electronic music, you think of the sound in its components. You take it apart. You listen, you can hear all the different contributions to a sound. And you start to think that way. So you have control of the design of the sound, because you know all the things that are impacting the design. And when I had the buchla, I could control those. I could control those aspects. I also studied computer music, with Max Matthews. Yeah. And there we were doing a lot of analysis and recombining and designing sound out of its component elements. You know, you had to say, oh, I'll take this and I'll FM it there and then I'll
Yes.
move it, you know. So you think of it that way. And sound design was a wonderful field because it seemed so natural. You know, even if something did not make a sound, it had a sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, there was a sound that you could conjure up that represented almost
right.
anything.
I see.
Whether an emotion, sadness, happiness, cold, heat.
Okay.
You know, the first album that I did was called Voices of Packaged Souls. It was with a sculptor in Brussels. Well, the show was in Brussels. And it was sounds of Harold Paris, the sculptor, made a list of sounds: the sound of heat, the sound of cold, the sound of an old man loving, the sound of a flower falling. You know, all these sounds that, what is the sound of a flower falling? I mean, you don't hear it, but there is a sound, right? It's a poetry.
Do you think it's universal or different from each person to the next?
Different for each person. If I asked you to make the sound, you could do this.
Yeah,
you know, with your
probably.
kids in electronics, they make the sound of a flower falling. And you'll get a different sound from every kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
So, I think our time is up. I just
Okay.
have one last more question. You know, the typical one. If you were going to an island, isolated, which instrument you would take? Only one.
Which instrument would I
Yeah.
take? Do they have electricity on the island?
Yes, a good question. Good. It's a good question. Yeah. Suppose they have. Yeah. So.
Very tricky question.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Well, okay, it's between the piano if there's no electricity and the bukla if there is.
Okay, good. Okay.
That poor island.
Right.
We could have solar, you know, solar energy, solar
solar
electricity.
energy, then we can-
and 4 speakers at least, right?
So thank you very much,
Thank
Suzanne,
you.
for the interview.